On Wednesday morning, South Africans woke up to the shocking news of the passing of a prolific journalist, Matshidiso Madia. I'm actually joined now by one of the people who refers to her as a mentor. Thank you so much for joining me, my sister. If you can just elaborate on the relationship that you actually had with Matshidiso.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm Gaopalelwe Phalaetsile. I'm a young journalist as well. I met Tshidi around 2017-18 when I was a very new journalist. And I came into the industry as a mother as well. I was very scared, didn't know, sometimes what to do, what not to do. And Tshidi was one of those people who welcomed me with open arms. She was working at News 24 at the time. And she was always, interested in knowing how are you doing, and quite a person who was paying attention to detail, followed me on social media. I followed her back as well, was constantly checking in on how are you doing as a black young journalist who's also a mother, always affirming that, you're doing such a great job. The industry is tough, as you may know, especially to young black women. The hours are long. Imagine for a mother, and every time we would meet at a story, the political stories, Tshidi would always be interested in how are you doing, how are the kids, and she would always be affirming, you think you're not doing things okay in the industry, you'll never know, and she would be affirming that I heard your story, you're doing so well. And she was always willing to help as well when you were, confused about what angle to take or what angle not to take, which angle is important. Tshidi was never one to shy away from assisting people like us.
Absolutely, and we saw a lot of messages of condolences pouring in, even from her sharpest critics at some point, actually, showing that she was a person who would reconcile with those that even had a different view from hers.
Absolutely. Tshidi was fair, Ofentse. She was objective in her journalism, and that's the one thing I learned from her. I watched her from afar sometimes, watching her take attacks and criticisms, but constantly standing her ground, which encouraged me as a young journalist, and a young woman to stand my ground. Even when I was covering the State Capture Commission myself, sometimes facing attacks on social media, I remembered people like Tshidi who held space for someone like me.
Absolutely. And, her trip to the U.S., upon her return, she was like a household name and people hailing her, even comparing her to the late Mama Winnie Mandela. How was your reaction upon her return from the U.S.?
For me, that was the Tshidi I know. So when other people got to see that Tshidi, I was very happy to see that people were seeing that Tshidi that we know. I knew her as that person, very sharp, very critical. She was a critical thinker and she was honest, I was very happy for her. And I still am today. I was happy that she got her moment to show South Africa who she is. Journalists don't get the recognition, Ofentse. It's very tough for us in the industry, we all know. And even though I've left the industry, I'm still a journalist today. And, Tshidi is one of those people who helped shape that. So I was very happy for her, and I'm glad she stood her ground. Journalists are supposed to be patriotic, and she gave us that.
Your message to her fans, family, and loved ones?
Yeah. Condolences to each and every one of us. We've lost someone very remarkable, not just an amazing journalist, but amazing sister. She was also an aunt. I want to say to her family, thank you. Thank you for borrowing us, Tshidi. She was amazing. She had a very big impact on each and every one of us.
Thank you very much. Well, as you can hear, that's a former colleague to Matshidiso Madia and also an activist who says upon her arrival in the journalism fraternity, Matshidiso Madia is one of those that welcomed her with warm arms.